How's it going, everybody? Top here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that's near and dear to my heart, and probably yours too. Finding those awesome firearms that haven't quite hit the big time yet. You know what I'm talking about. Those guns you see at the gun show, maybe sitting on the back rack of your local shop, and you think, man, that's a cool piece of history. But for some reason, the price tag is still reasonable. It's like finding a hidden treasure before everyone else realizes its true worth. We all know the feeling of looking back and saying, I should have bought one when they were cheap. We've all seen it happen. A once common, affordable rifle suddenly becomes a collector's darling, and the prices just go through the roof. It's the story of surplus firearms, of guns from a bygone era, and even some modern classics that just get overlooked. It's a game of timing, knowledge, and a little bit of luck. Today, we're going to try and stack the deck in our favor. I've spent a ton of time digging through the market, looking at historical trends, and just plain thinking about which carbines are flying under the radar right now. These are the guns that pack a punch in history, performance, or both, but haven't yet seen that massive price explosion. So, get your wish lists ready, because we're about to go on a journey through 7 of the most underrated carbines you might still be able to snag for a decent price. From wartime legends to modern marvels, these are the guns I believe are poised for a serious value increase in the coming years. We're talking about pieces you can enjoy at the range today and watch appreciate as part of your collection tomorrow. So, the big question is, which carbines are still affordable today but might skyrocket in value tomorrow? Let's find out. Alright, kicking things off with an absolute icon. A piece of American history you can hold in your hands. The M1 Carbine. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, Top. The M1 Carbine isn't underrated, it's a legend. And you're right, it is. But here's the thing. For the longest time, it's been living in the shadow of its big brother, the M1 Garand. The Garand gets all the glory for that iconic ping, while this little guy, which was produced in even greater numbers, often gets dismissed as a pistol-caliber carbine or not a real battle rifle. But let's set the record straight. This carbine was designed for a specific purpose, and it excelled at it. It was made for support troops, paratroopers, and officers who needed something lighter and handier than the full-sized Garand, but with more punch and range than a 1911 pistol. Chambered in .30 carbine, it's a zippy little round that's an absolute blast to shoot. It's lightweight, has low recoil, and it's just plain fun. Millions of GIs carried this thing through the forests of Europe and the jungles of the Pacific, and they trusted their lives to it. The M1 Carbine's story didn't end in WWII. It went on to serve in Korea, Vietnam, and countless other conflicts around the globe with various armies. The sheer history packed into this little rifle is incredible. For a collector, that's a gold mine. You can find carbines made by a whole host of different manufacturers. Inland, Winchester, Rockola, you name it. Each one tells a slightly different story of America's arsenal of democracy gearing up for war. It's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. So why is it on this list? Because for years you could find these things pretty darn cheap, especially the import-marked ones. People saw them as shooters, not serious collectibles. But that tide is turning, and it's turning fast. The supply of good condition original USGI carbines is drying up. As the generation that carried them passes, the nostalgia and historical significance are only growing stronger. People are starting to appreciate the M1 Carbine, not just as a fun plinker, but as a crucial piece of military history. If you look at the prices over the last 5 to 10 years, you'll see a steady climb. What was once a $500 or $600 gun show find is now regularly commanding over $1,000, and pristine examples are going for much, much more. The commercial copies from companies like Auto Ordnance are keeping interest alive, but they're also highlighting the value of the originals. People want the real deal, the one with the history baked right into the wood and steel. The thing is, I don't think this climb is anywhere near its peak. Compared Compared to other WWII firearms like the Garand or the German K98K, a good M1 carbine is still relatively accessible. But as more collectors wake up to its historical significance and its sheer fun factor, those prices are only going to go one way. Finding a solid USGI M1 carbine right now is like buying stock in a company you know is about to take off. It's an investment in history. So, if you've ever wanted to own a genuine piece of American WWII history that you can actually take to the range and enjoy without breaking the bank or your shoulder, the M1 carbine is it. But my advice is don't wait too long. The days of these being the overlooked carbine are numbered. Go find a good one, appreciate its story, and enjoy knowing you got in before the rest of the world caught on. It's a classic for a reason. Next up, we're heading behind the Iron Curtain to talk about a rifle that is the definition of rugged and reliable, the SKS, the Samozariadny Carabin Systemy Simonova. Yeah, let's just stick with SKS. This carbine is a true Cold War warrior. Designed by Sergei Simonov in the final days of WWII, it was officially adopted by the Soviet Union in 1949, just before its much more famous successor, the AK-47, came onto the scene. And that, right there, is the core of why the SKS is so underrated. The SKS had a very short service life as the primary Soviet rifle, because the AK-47, with its detachable magazine and select fire capability, was just a revolutionary design. The SKS was quickly relegated to second-line units and ceremonial duties. But the story doesn't end there. The Soviets shared the design with their communist allies, and countries like China, Yugoslavia, Romania, and Albania produced millions of their own variants. This rifle was everywhere during the Cold War, from the jungles of Vietnam to conflicts in Africa and the Middle East. Chambered in the ubiquitous 7.62 by 39mm, the same round as the AK-47, the SKS packs a serious punch. It's a gas-operated semi-automatic carbine with a fixed 10-round magazine that's typically loaded with stripper clips. And let me tell you, getting fast with those stripper clips is a skill and a whole lot of fun. The milled receiver makes it incredibly durable, and that iconic folding bayonet is just the cherry on top. It's a simple, robust design that just works. For decades, the SKS was the king of cheap surplus rifles. I remember when you could walk into a gun store and see a whole barrel of Chinese Norinco SKS rifles for $100 a piece. They were swimming in cosmoline and you'd spend a weekend cleaning them up. But at the end of it, you had a fantastic, reliable shooter for next to nothing. Those days, my friends, are long, long gone. Import bans and the simple fact that the massive surplus stockpiles are drying up have changed the game completely. The reason the SKS is on this list now is because while the prices have gone up from their absolute bottom, they're still in a place I would call reasonable, especially when you compare them to other military surplus rifles. A good quality Chinese or Yugoslavian SKS can still be found for a few $100s. But the real potential for collectors lies in the less common variants. A Russian SKS, with its beautiful laminated stock and pristine machining, is already a prized collectible. An Albanian or East German variant? Those are getting seriously rare and valuable. People are starting to look past the cheap AK alternative label and appreciate the SKS for what it is. A well-made, historically significant military carbine. Collectors are now differentiating between the various factories, years of production, and national variants. The bubbled SKS rifles with aftermarket plastic stocks and duckbill mags are becoming a cautionary tale, while original, numbers-matching examples are becoming the new standard for collectors. This shift in perception is what drives prices up. I truly believe the SKS is on the same trajectory as the Mosin Nagant. We all remember when Mosins were $79 rifles. Now a nice collectible example can easily fetch $500 or more. The SKS is next in line. The supply is finite, and the demand from a new generation of collectors who appreciate Cold War history is only growing. If you can find a clean, original SKS, especially a Russian or another less common variant, for a decent price, buy it. Don't hesitate. You're not just buying a great shooter, you're buying a piece of history whose value is only just beginning to be truly appreciated. Alright, let's bring it back stateside for our next one, a carbine that's a true American classic but has always had a bit of an identity crisis, the Ruger Mini 14. If you grew up in the 80s, you know this rifle. It was the star of the A-Team, the go-to bad guy gun in movies, and a staple in the hands of law enforcement agencies across the country. It looks like a scaled-down M14, and that's no accident. Bill Ruger designed it to be a civilian-friendly, traditional-looking semi-auto rifle. It's chambered in 223 Remington 556 NATO, same as the AR-15, but that's where the similarities end. The Mini 14 uses a Garand-style action with a rotating bolt and a fixed piston gas system. This makes it incredibly reliable, especially in harsh conditions. It just chews through whatever ammo you feed it and keeps on running. For a long time, if you wanted a semi-auto Point 23 but didn't want a black rifle, the Mini 14 was your best, and often only, choice. Why is it underrated? 2 letters, AR. The absolute dominance of the AR-15 platform in the civilian market has overshadowed the Mini 14 for decades. The AR-15 is more modular, generally considered more accurate out of the box, especially for Mini 14s, and has a much larger aftermarket. The Mini 14 was often seen as the bud rifle, the less serious, less tactical choice. It got a reputation for being ranchable, good for clinking and chasing coyotes, not a serious defensive tool. But things have changed. First, Ruger significantly improved the Mini 14 in the mid-2000s, starting with the 580 series. They retooled the manufacturing process, introduced a heavier, tapered barrel, and improved the sights. These newer Mini 14s are much more accurate than their predecessors. They are genuinely solid, reliable, and capable carbines right out of the box. The dinner plate accuracy jokes just don't apply anymore. Second, the political climate has played a huge role. In states with restrictive assault weapon bans, the traditional styling of the Mini 14 often allows it to remain legal when AR-15s are not. This has created a new, dedicated market for the rifle. People who were once forced to buy a Mini 14 are now discovering that it's actually a fantastic carbine in its own right. This renewed interest is starting to reflect in the prices, not just of new rifles, but of older, more unique models. The investment potential here is interesting. While standard ranch rifles will likely hold their value well, the real gems to look for are the less common variants. The original 180 series rifles are becoming collectible. The Mini 14 GB government barrel models with the bayonet lug and flash hider are highly sought after. And the holy grail for collectors is the factory folding stock version, the AC556's semi-auto cousin. If you can find one of those for a reasonable price, jump on it, because they are skyrocketing. I think the perception of the Mini 14 is shifting. It's moving from being the other 223 semi-auto to being appreciated for its own unique merits, its bomb-proof reliability, its classic styling, and its American-made heritage. As more people discover the charm of the Mini 14, and as certain variants become harder to find, the prices will continue to climb. It's no longer just the A-Team's gun, it's a smart collector's gun. Okay, now we're getting into some seriously cool and rare territory. This next one is a bit of a unicorn for many collectors, a true if you know kind of rifle. I'm talking about the Belgian-made Fabrique Nationale FNC. This is the carbine that was meant to be the pinnacle of 5.56 rifle design in the late 70s and early 80s, combining the best features of the AK-47, the AR-15, and FN's own legendary FAL. The FNC, or Fabrique Nationale carbine, was FN's answer to the widespread adoption of the 5.56 cartridge. It uses a long-stroke gas piston system, heavily inspired by the AK, which makes it incredibly reliable. But it also has an upper and lower receiver like an AR, takes Stanig AR-15 magazines, and has ergonomics that are a huge step up from the AK platform. It's a fantastic blend of ideas executed with that legendary FN quality. It's the rifle that the Swedish military adopted as the AK-5, and it has served faithfully in Belgium, Indonesia, and other nations for decades. So if it's so great, why is it on an underrated list? Simple scarcity in the United States. The FNC had a very short import window. They were brought into the country for a few years in the 1980s before the 1989 import ban on assault weapons slammed the door shut. Only a few thousand semi-automatic FNCs ever made it into the country. That makes them incredibly rare compared to something like an HK91 or a pre-ban FL. For years, the FNC was sort of a niche collector's item. It was overshadowed by the more famous FN-FL and the pre-ban ARs and AKs. It was also known for one little quirk: the original semi-auto trigger components were a bit fragile. However, dedicated aftermarket suppliers have long since solved that issue with high-quality replacement parts, making the FNC the reliable shooter it was always meant to be. The mystique of the FNC was also boosted by its appearance in the classic 1995 film, Heat, where Al Pacino's character uses one to great effect. The reason to pay attention to the FNC now is that the secret is getting out. 80s action movie nostalgia is at an all-time high, and collectors are looking for the next big thing after pre-ban HKs and AKs have reached astronomical prices. The FNC is it. It has the rarity, the military pedigree, the FN name, and that iconic 80s aesthetic. It's everything a modern collector could want in an investment-grade firearm. Just a few years ago, you might have been able to find an FNC for around $3,500 to $4,000. That's a lot of money, for sure. But in the world of pre-ban exotics, it was actually a pretty good deal. Today, those prices are climbing rapidly. You'll be lucky to find one under $5,000 or $6,000, and prices are heading toward the five-figure mark, especially for pristine examples with the original box and accessories. The supply is fixed and the demand is only growing. This isn't a carbine you're going to stumble upon at your local gun shop's used rack. This is a holy grail gun you have to actively hunt for at high-end auctions and collector forums. But if you have the means and you're looking for a top-tier collectible carbine that I believe still has significant room to grow in value, the FN FNC is one of the best bets you can make. It's a masterpiece of firearm design, and its value is finally starting to reflect that. Let's switch gears a little bit. Not every great carbine has to be a military semi-auto. Sometimes a carbine is just a handy, lightweight, and incredibly accurate little rifle. And for that, we need to talk about the Czech masterpiece that was the CZ527 carbine. Notice I said was. That's a key part of why this rifle is on the list. But first, let's talk about what makes it so special. The CZ527 was a true micro Mauser action bolt-action rifle. It wasn't just a shortened version of a bigger action. It was designed from the ground up for smaller cartridges like 223 Remington and, in the case of the most sought-after carbine model, 7.62 by 39 millimeter. This made the action incredibly light, slick, and perfectly proportioned. It was a marvel of efficient, old-world engineering and craftsmanship, something CZ is famous for. The carbine model, with its 18.5-inch barrel and beautiful Turkish walnut stock, was the epitome of a handy scout or truck gun. It was lightweight, perfectly balanced, and shockingly accurate. And the 7.62 by 39 millimeter chambering was brilliant. It turned the rifle into the perfect companion for anyone who already owned an SKS or AK, allowing them to shoot cheap, plentiful ammo in a precision bolt-action platform. Plus, it came with a fantastic single-set trigger, which could be pushed forward to set it to a crisp, featherlight pull for precision shots. For years, the CZ527 carbine was a bit of a cult classic. People who had them loved them. They knew they had something special. But to the broader market, it was just another bolt-action rifle. Maybe a little odd with its European styling and metric chambering. It was consistently one of the best values in the bolt-action world, offering a level of quality and features that you'd expect to find on a much more expensive rifle. Then, in 2021, CZ broke a lot of hearts. They announced they were discontinuing the entire 527 line to make way for their new, more modern and easier to manufacture 600 series. And just like that, the supply of new CZ527s dried up. This is the single biggest catalyst for a value increase. A beloved high-quality firearm is no longer being made. We've seen this story play out time and time again with Marlin lever actions, pre-64 Winchesters and others. Suddenly, everyone who had been thinking, "I'll get a 527 carbine one day," realized that one day had to be now. The prices on the used market started to creep up almost immediately. The 7.62 by 39mm carbine models, which were always the most popular, saw the biggest jump. What was once a $600 to $700 rifle is now regularly selling for over $1,000 on auction sites. And the prices are showing no signs of slowing down. I believe the CZ527 carbine is going to become a serious collector's item. It represents a type of firearm that is becoming increasingly rare. A beautifully crafted, all-steel and wood, old-world quality rifle that is designed for function and built to last for generations. It's the anti-plastic chassis rifle. As the market becomes more saturated with modern designs, firearms like the 527 will stand out for their classic quality and charm. If you can find one in good condition for a price that seems reasonable today, grab it. In 5 years, you'll be very glad you did. Alright, for our next pick, we're jumping from old world wood and steel straight into the future. Or at least, what the early 2000s thought the future would look like. Let's talk about the Italian space gun, the Beretta CX4 Storm. This is a pistol caliber carbine, or PCC, and it is one of the most unique and intelligently designed firearms in its class. When it first came out, it looked like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, and it still turns heads at the range today. The CX4 is a blowback-operated semi-automatic carbine, most commonly chambered in 9mm 40 Smith & Wesson. What makes it so brilliant is its magazine compatibility. It was designed to accept the same magazines as Beretta service pistols. If you have a Beretta 92FS or M9, a PX4 Storm, or even a Cougar, you can get a CX4 that shares the same mags. That's a huge logistical advantage, creating a perfect pistol and carbine pairing. It's a simple, elegant system. The ergonomics of the CX4 are also fantastic and incredibly futuristic. It's fully ambidextrous. You can swap the charging handle, ejection port, and safety to either side of the gun with no special tools. This makes it one of the most left-handed friendly firearms ever made. It's lightweight, the thumb hole stock is surprisingly comfortable, and it's an absolute pussycat to use. With minimal recoil, it's a gun that literally anyone can pick up and be effective. So, with all that going for it, why on earth is it underrated? I think it comes down to a few things. First, its futuristic look can be polarizing. Some people love it, but others, especially more traditional shooters, are turned off by the polymer space gun aesthetic. Second, for a long time the PCC market was a small niche. It's only in the last few years, with the rise of competitions like USPSA's PCC division, that these guns have really exploded in popularity. And in that explosion, the CX4 got a little lost in the shuffle. A flood of new AR-style PCCs hit the market, They offered the familiar AR-15 ergonomics and modularity, and they quickly became the dominant force in the competition world. The CX4, with its proprietary design, was seen as less tactical and less customizable. It was kind of left behind as the market chased the AR-style PCC trend. But here's why you should be looking at it now. The CX4 Storm is a Beretta. The quality is exceptional. It's a proven, reliable design that has seen use with law enforcement agencies around the world. As the PCC market matures, I think people are going to start looking beyond the sea of AR-9s and appreciate the unique designs. The CX4's clever features like the magazine compatibility and full ambidexterity are going to be reevaluated and appreciated. We're already seeing a quiet increase in interest. The prices for used CX4s have been slowly but surely ticking upwards. Beretta has released new versions, like the enhanced model with more accessory rails and an improved trigger, which has brought fresh attention to the platform. I think the CX4 is a sleeper. It's a high-quality, incredibly fun and practical carbine that has been overlooked in the recent PCC craze. As people look for something different, something with a bit more character than another black rifle, the CX4 will be waiting. It's a future classic, hiding in plain sight. For our final carbine, we're going back to the Cold War, back to Czechoslovakia, for a rifle that looks like an AK-47, shoots the same 7.62 by 39mm cartridge as an AK-47, but is absolutely, positively not an AK-47. Meet the WWII. This is one of the coolest and most misunderstood military surplus rifles you can get your hands on, and it is criminally underrated. From a distance, you'd be forgiven for mistaking it for a Kalashnikov. It has the same general layout, a similar-looking magazine, though they are not interchangeable, and that classic Cold War vibe. But once you get up close, you realize it's a completely different animal. The WWII, or ZOR 58, was the Czech answer to the AK. The Czechs have always marched to the beat of their own drum when it comes to firearms design, and they refused to simply adopt the Soviet AK. Instead, they designed their own rifle from the ground up. The WWII uses a short-stroke gas piston system, unlike the AK's long-stroke piston. It has a tilting block locking mechanism, more like a Walther P38 than an AK. The receiver is milled from a solid billet of steel, making it incredibly strong yet surprisingly lightweight. It's actually lighter than a stamped receiver AKM. It also has a bolt hold open feature, which is a huge ergonomic improvement over the AK. It's a more refined and many would argue a more elegant piece of engineering. So why has it been living in the AK's shadow? Mostly, it's just name recognition. The AK-47 is a global icon, a brand unto itself. The WWII 58 is more of a connoisseur's choice. For a long time, the only way to get one in the US was as a parts kit gun, built on a new US-made receiver. The quality of these builds could vary wildly, which gave the platform a bit of a mixed reputation. However, that changed when companies like Czech Small Arms and Checkpoint USA started importing high-quality, newly manufactured, semi-automatic WWII 58s directly from the Czech Republic. These are not parts kit guns. They are made on the same machinery as the original military rifles, to the same high standards. These imports showed the American market just how fantastic the WWII 58 platform truly is. Despite this, the WWII 58 is still significantly undervalued compared to high-end AK variants. You can often get a brand new, incredibly well-made Czech WWII 58 for the same price or even less than a mid-tier domestic AK clone. It's a bizarre market dynamic. You're getting a milled receiver, a chrome-lined barrel, a more advanced operating system, and genuine Czech military heritage for a bargain price. I am convinced this won't last. As more shooters and collectors discover the WWII 58 and realize it's not just another AK, the demand is going to surge. People will start to appreciate its unique history as the rifle of a nation that insisted on its own superior design, even while under Soviet influence. The lightweight handling, the bolt hold open, the sheer quality of the machining. It all adds up to a rifle that deserves to be in the same price bracket as pre-ban Polytechs or Arsenal SAM 7s. The Vers 58 is the thinking man's 7.62 by 39mm carbine, and the market is just beginning to wake up to that fact. And there you have it, 7 carbines that I truly believe are some of the most underrated guns on the market today. From the battle-tested M1 Carbine and SKS to the space-age CX4 Storm and the refined Vs 58, each one of these firearms tells a unique story. They represent different eras of design, different philosophies of use, and different corners of the globe. They're more than just tools. They're tangible pieces of history, engineering, and culture that you can own and enjoy. And the best part is, they haven't yet reached the crazy price points of some of their more famous cousins. The world of firearm collecting is always changing. What's affordable and overlooked today can easily become the next unobtainable holy grail tomorrow. It's all about seeing the value that others might be missing, whether it's historical significance, engineering excellence, or just plain rarity. The key is to do your research, know what you're looking for, and act when you find a good deal. These 7 are just my top picks, but the same principles apply to so many other guns out there. Keep your eyes open, because the next big thing might be sitting on the rack right in front of you. I hope this gives you some ideas for your own collection, or maybe just inspires you to look a little closer at that oddball rifle at the next gun show. It's a rewarding hobby that's part treasure hunt, part history lesson, and a whole lot of fun at the range. Carbines like these are more than just weapons. They're history and value combined. Which one would you grab before the prices climb? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.